We live in a world that glorifies being busy, whether it's keeping up with the latest news, saying yes to every invite, or constantly checking social media. We're conditioned to believe that missing out means we're failing or that we're not enough. But what if missing out was actually winning? I'm Eric Feltus. I'm a life coach who helps other gay men free themselves from religious shame and build confidence and community. And today we're talking about the joy of missing out. Why saying no to things that drain you is actually saying yes to the life you want. But before we get too deep into it, I want to share a story with you. Up until my 20s, I had always thought that I was an extreme extrovert. I had to go to every party, go to every play, take every acting class, say yes to every invite. And most of my alone time was spent scrolling on social media, sitting in my own discomfort and making up stories, as to why I wasn't invited to that one thing. It's like I would intentionally torture myself. And then something called the pandemic happened. The world stopped. Parties and jeans were out. Tiger King and sweatpants were in, and after the shock settled and we realized that things were not going to be the same, I actually started to enjoy myself. I felt like a sense of peace I had never really felt before. All of a sudden, I was actually enjoying spending time alone. But I think that begs the question, why? What happened? One day I realized that because everyone else was staying in, I wasn't missing out. This whole time I had thought I was an extreme extrovert, when in reality, I had just been suffering from extreme FOMO. COVID-19 changed everyone's lives, for better or for worse. And for me, it was sort of the catalyst I needed to go from struggling with the fear of missing out and getting to a place where I felt the joy of missing out. And I have to be honest, I am so much happier now because of it. I no longer say yes to things that I don't want to do. I leave the party when I'm ready to go. I limit myself to only taking on projects that I have the passion, time, and energy for. And so by the end of this video, my hope is that you will know how to stop feeling guilty about saying no, prioritize what truly makes you happy, find joy and fulfillment in doing less, not more. First and foremost, let's talk about why we fear missing out, particularly in the gay community. Many of us were raised with the idea that we had to prove ourselves or constantly make up for lost time. And I think that when we do that, we're thinking, if I'm not doing something, I'm missing out on something. I also think that we are perfectionists and people pleasers. At a young age, we're conditioned to believe that we're bad as we are. And so what we need to do is things, literally, we need to do things in order to say, don't look at who I am, look at all of my achievements. So if I'm not doing something, oftentimes I feel like I'm missing out and that I'm not worthy and I'm not good. In the gay community, there's also pressure to always be seen. Right? At bars, pride events, social circles, and dating apps. Social media makes this even worse by showing us everyone else's highlights, like I was saying in my own life before. But chasing every event and opportunity can actually leave us feeling more disconnected from ourselves. Pause. When was the last time you said yes to something just because you felt like you should? How did it make you feel? Drop it in the comments and let's talk about it. Okay, moving on. So that's FOMO and why we struggle with it. But what is JOMO and why is it a game changer? JOMO, or the joy of missing out, is the intentional choice to step away from things that don't serve you. It's about embracing quality over quantity in your social life, your commitments, and your time. Instead of feeling guilty about missing a party, event, or opportunity, you start to celebrate it as a conscious choice for your well-being. One time I went to a 3-day conference for work, and after the second long day, there was a cocktail hour for networking. I was exhausted, but determined to go. I went up to the room to freshen up. I looked in the mirror. I noticed how tired I was, and I decided to order a pizza and stay in instead. Honestly, it was the best decision that I could have made. And was much more energized the next day than I would have been if I had gone to the event. Trust me, before COVID, I would not have done that. I would have sucked it up. I would have gone to the event and I just would have been miserable. But you have to do what feels right for you. And sometimes less is more. Now I want to talk about how to shift your mindset from fear of missing out to the joy of missing out in 3 steps. Step number 1, define your priorities. What actually brings you joy? What events do you truly want to go to versus what do you feel obligated to go to? Step number 2, set boundaries without guilt. It's okay to say no without over-explaining. That sounds fun, but I'm prioritizing rest this weekend. Or I'd love to catch up another time. How about coffee date instead? Step 3, reframe alone time as a gift, not a punishment. You're not missing out. You're choosing yourself. So don't focus on what you're not doing. Instead, focus on what you're gaining and what you are doing instead. Use the joy of missing out time to engage in things that fill you up. Deep rest, creativity, reflection, solo adventures, a nap. The people who truly value you will respect your boundaries. Once again, the 3 steps from shifting away from fear to joy are 1, define your priorities. 2, set boundaries without guilt. And 3, reframe alone time as a gift, not a punishment. Pause again to reflect. What's one thing you've been doing out of obligation that you'd like to say no to this week? Write that down in your journal and commit to it. Let's move on. How does the joy of missing out lead to a more fulfilling life? Well, you build deeper, more meaningful connections when you show up fully instead of half-heartedly. You gain confidence in choosing what truly serves you. You make space for new experiences that align with your values, not just your social calendar. I want to leave you with a final thought. Expect to feel uncomfortable. When we say no to things when we're used to saying yes, that's going to be uncomfortable. If you go to the gym to work out, that's uncomfortable and you know you're growing. And so what you're doing now is you're growing your boundary muscles, right? You're saying no to other things so you can say yes to yourself. Just because it feels uncomfortable does not mean you're being punished. It just means you're trying something new. So stay at it. Friends, we talked about a lot today. We've talked about the difference between the fear and the joy of missing out. We've also talked about the benefits of embracing that joy of missing out. Talked about defining your priorities, setting boundaries without guilt, and reframing that alone time as a gift and not a punishment. I hope you learned something from this so that you can have a more fulfilling, joyful life. If you did, drop it in the comment. I'd love to hear about it. And if you need more help with this, you can just DM me on Instagram, help, or you can drop a comment here and we'll talk here as well. Until next time, peace out.